Hi, everybody. It's Ashley here, the dog geek. I'm super excited to chat with you today. It's been a while, um, but I've been going over all this information in my head about a bunch of different things, and I have so many things I want to talk about in future podcasts. I want to talk about what we're feeding our dogs. Now, I'm not a dog nutritionist, but I do want to talk about. Research that I have done on what we can feed our dogs, healthies, not healthy things, different ways to feed our dogs. I want to talk about um, breeding, and I want to talk about rescue dogs and shelter dogs and where you're going to get your dog. Oh, my brain is just buzzing with information that I need to share and I want to get out with everybody. So, this podcast, I wanted to talk about reactivity. And uh, part of the reason I want to talk about reactivity is because I have a dog um, that is reactive in a negative way to new things. So new people, dogs, new things that happen in the house. You can also have a dog that is reactive in a there's the boy, positive way, in the sense that they're overexcited, they're over happy. So in both cases, whether it's positive in a positive way, a negative way, our dogs go over threshold, meaning that they're not in a thinking brain anymore. They're just reacting strictly off emotion, and they cannot think or listen to any type of cues we ask them to do or anything like that. So I'm almost ready to say that all dogs have reactivity, just different levels, just different intensities of reactivity. Some dogs can stay under threshold and can stay in a thinking brain and can work. So we have, like, if you, for example, a border collie who is working with sheep, and the farmers are asking them, to herd the sheep and to move them from pasture to pasture. And those dogs are excited, maybe a little anxious, maybe, but they're working at this high level of energy, but they're in a thinking brain. So it's this kind of they're in control of their body and their emotions. So we can watch them do it, but they're able to listen. So same thing with an agility competition dog. So dogs that are going into agility that we see on TV, yes, that all those emotions, the dopamine's being excuse me, released in their body, their adrenaline is running, and it looks like there's a lot going on in their body, and there is, but they are able to stay in a thinking brain and listen to their handler asking them telling them, sorry, where they need to go next. Are they going to a tunnel? Are they going to a jump? They're following hand signal cues. So we have a dog that's in control of their mind and their body, even though the energy levels have increased for them. So that's why I say all dogs have reactivity. It just depends on what levels of reactivity, and do we need to worry about them? How can we help our dogs be more comfortable and be able to stay in a thinking brain? Um, I want to talk a little bit about um, where our dog kind of those levels increase, and ways that you can see if your dog is being out of a thinking brain, how trying to catch them before they go over threshold, before they are out of a thinking brain, and bringing them back down to earth with us. So on a daily basis, typically, our dogs living in our home and their regular routine are very neutral zoned. All right. So they're super comfortable. They are, bodies are relaxed. Nothing is over the top. They're just kind of chill and hanging out with us. They might be excited, happy, but they're not going crazy. Okay. Then, um, there'll be, if something maybe catches their eye, whether it's a toy and it's playtime. All right. Dogs have these two energy bursts throughout the day, typically. So maybe we're getting to a point where your dog's getting a little bored and they need some exercise. They want to run, they want to play. So become interested in something. And again, this is in a happy way. All right. So our dogs become interested in something. They want to play, they want to tug, they want to run around in the backyard. So the level rises to this happy, excited, bouncy, runny dog. So, and you can think in this instance like the agility dogs, right? So they're having fun doing what they're doing. They're getting exercise, they're playing, but they're in a thinking brain. So they're listening. You can teach them, they can work in this excited state. So when we're here, this is when training can occur too. So we're doing things like we're going to play tug with our dog and we ask our dog to drop it and we trade with a treat and then we give the toy back. So this is a play. But even though our dog might be getting really excited, they're able to follow cues, take food, and learn while we're doing this. Okay. And then the other side of that scale is our dog, again, going from neutral, comfortable, relaxed body, chill. Maybe something piques their curiosity and they become a little cautious. So that could be, right, seeing something in the backyard. And all of a sudden, the body language changes. They become suspicious of something and they become possibly anxious about something. So again, we have this rise in their levels here. What's the word I'm thinking of? I can do it. I can do it. Their emotions have rised. So anyway, and then, but this looks like, right. So we all of a sudden maybe notice our dogs become stiff. Maybe they start to stare. Maybe the tail tucks under. Maybe the ears go back. Maybe the ears go forward. But now we're getting this different state of emotion of suspicion, curiosity, maybe anxiety is happening because of something. So but in this state, this is the golden state that we want to try to catch our dogs to help them not go over threshold. In both cases, in both whether they're happy, excited, and we're playing with tug or chase or something, or whether they're feeling suspicious and anxious. This is the zone where we want to work with them and keep them under threshold because in both of these scenarios, they are in a thinking brain. So if my dog maybe saw a rabbit or a squirrel in the backyard, I see that they became stiff. I see the stare, and it's like, ooh, if I don't catch this now, he's gonna go, right? I think a lot of us have experienced that where all of a sudden they're like a bolt at a bolt of lightning, and they just go. So before they bolt is when I need to get my dog's attention back, and this would maybe be with a chase toy and say, oh, all right, don't chase that one, leave it, and come chase this with me. So I'm gonna give you that adrenaline boost. I'm going to give you the instinct to chase by chasing this appropriate toy that I have for you instead of, and then this is where this changes. The suspicion and anxiety can change to just excited and happy because now we're playing with a toy. So I'm able to change a dog's emotional state, and you are able to change the dog's emotional state based on what's happening. If your dog's outside on a walk, I have this problem with my big dog, and they see another person. He's actually much better with people than he is with dogs, but you see a person or you see another dog and you know that your dog is its emotions are going to increase, whether that be in a happy way or a negative way. We know their emotions are going to increase. I have to think about keeping my dog in a thinking brain. How do I do that? Well, the closer we get to the thing, the higher and more intense the emotions get. And the more I'm going to have a dog that can't think. Okay. So I need to either stay where I am or back up, create space, or block the view of that thing. Maybe we wait next to the car while the other dog passes by. And in that instance, where our dog, yeah, they might be excited, anxious about this other dog across the street, but because of the car blocking the view, their brain can't hyper focus and zone in, and we're able to break up those feelings, and I can maybe ask, call their name. I can ask them to find a treat. I can ask them to sit, do different things. We want to activate the brain to thinking and working with you instead of fixating on that other thing. So that's where we want to try to work. The problem comes in when either that excitement and that happiness, that joy, or the anxiousness and the suspicion goes over threshold. Now, if anybody has been to therapy, or if anybody is a therapist or social work, or has any psychology knowledge, this is sounding very familiar to people. Okay, it's very familiar to how we process information and how our brains work. So going over threshold, we've surpassed the thinking brain, right? We can't use our techniques, we can't use the tactics to help calm ourselves, because we are just going strictly off this emotional rush of whatever it is. So at that point, we either have dogs that are too overexcited to either greet or see that thing. They're jumping, they're barking, they're spinning. Maybe they start chewing on their leash. They're pulling and tugging. Oh, it's like this manic state. Um, and no amount of you talking to them or asking them to do anything is going to help, right? The other side of the spectrum is dogs that are more cautious about something. Then they go into scared, I have to react to get this thing away mode. And that is the growling, showing of the teeth. Maybe the hackles go up on the back of the neck there, that hair that sticks up on the back. And that response is telling whatever that thing is to back up. I need space, get away, right? It's giving all these signs that the dog is saying I'm super uncomfortable. But again, us trying to talk to them at that point, it's not going to work because they cannot think. They're over their emotional threshold and they're running strictly on emotion, fight or flight, safety mode, right? The other So that's like safety mode in a fearful way. The overexcited, again, they just cannot think, and they're bananas. So in both of those cases, in both of those, I need to get my dog out of the situation safely and calmly so that I can bring that adrenaline, that excitement, that intensity down to where I have a dog that can now think. Okay. So that's why when we talk about things like they're reacting on leash, they're reacting with other things and this and people and blah, 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 is I need to give my dogs space. I need to give them relief from the situation, emotional relief, and I need them to be able to think. If the dog can think, they can learn, right? So if they're over threshold, they can't think. They're not learning anything, good or bad. They're just having an emotional outburst. So those things being said, I want to touch on what kind of emotions dogs do have, what they're capable of, and what they're not. So dogs can be, I kind of talked about it on the one side of our reactivity chart here. They can be happy and excited. And then the other side, they can be fearful and they can have like worry and concern, anxieties. They can become angry. They can have fear. Um, Now, anxiety, being anxious, can happen in both happy states and not happy states. Okay. I feel like we find that in our own lives where maybe we're going away on a big vacation. Well, we're so excited to go on vacation. We're excited to be off of work. We're excited to maybe be in the sun on the beach with a Mai Tai. But we are also anxious about everything maybe we have to do before going on that vacation. So a lot of times these feelings can kind of intermingle, but they have those feelings. What they don't have are things like shame, guilt over something. I find, oh, they're doing that, giving me that guilty look. They don't have guilt. It's not part of their emotional repertoire. They don't have remorse or resentment. They don't have bitterness. They're not spiteful. So a lot of these things, it's really funny as I'm looking at my little chart here. A lot of the words, it's like the more fancy the word, the more likely it is the dog doesn't have that emotion yet. Whereas the very basic, we're talking about basic emotions, basic core states of emotion is where your dog lives. They do not have all this extra stuff. I think we anthropomorphize onto them that they are capable of all of this, and they're not. They are have their basic emotional states. So it's something to really think about because people will say, well, my dog is doing that because they are, mad that I left them for the day. And so because they were mad at me, they chewed up my shoe. And again, they don't, that's too high of of a level of thinking that your dog does not have. They're very, very basic and simple in their processes. So, a dog doesn't have the ability to lie to you. The lying is not part of something that their brain can process. So, what we see when we are with our dogs is I'm sorry if you keep getting this click. Maybe it's just my headphones. I don't know. I keep getting a click because my phone keeps like dinging. It's really annoying. Okay. Sorry. Sorry. Sidebar. Let me come back to what it was I was talking about. So they cannot lie to you. So when you're with your dog or see your dog or anybody else's dog, they are always living in the moment. They are living in how they feel right now. And that could be based off of previous experiences, but they're not going, oh, okay, I am anxious, but I'm going to pretend like I'm not anxious because I don't want anybody to know, right? That's not part of their repertoire. So what your dog shows you at that moment is exactly how they are feeling. All right. Um, Many of their emotions are responses to things like either hormones or dopamine, adrenaline, oxytocin. So these are things in their body, right? It's just telling their body how to respond. So your dog does and can pick up on your emotions, how you're feeling. There are actually really interesting studies that have shown that dogs can recognize emotions in people's facial expressions. So, similarly, how we should know our dog's body language and what they're telling us based on their ears, their mouth, their tail, their backs, right? Are they arched or not? Those things, right? We have to learn them. Dogs, studies have shown, understand our facial expression of anger, happiness, sadness. They can kind of read and understand how we're feeling based on those expressions, which is fascinating. And but the part of that, dogs knowing that, is this. Because they have co-evolved with us, because they have learned how to live with people. They have learned our um, body language. And that's a survival thing, right? How are they reacting is going to depend on how I react. So if they're angry or being, loud and mad, I'm not going to address them. I'm going to keep my distance because that is not a safe space for me to be in. Or other way around, I'm super happy and excited and our dog wants to be all about it because it's a good time and it's going to be a lot of fun and they're enjoying it. Something else to think about, to consider when learning about our dogs, their emotions and how they're responding and reacting, how they're learning, is that dogs have the same neurotransmitters that regulate their emotions as people do. Okay. Really, really fascinating. So no, we don't want to put on that dogs are the same as people, obviously. However, their brain works similar to ours in how it makes its connections. So that's why a lot of people, again, who are who either have been to therapy, right? And I've talked about this, who have any kind of knowledge in psychology go, wow, that is really interesting because it's so familiar to what I either tell people to do or what I've experienced that I have to do. And it is fascinating because the brain is working and processing in the same way. Now, I'm going to piggyback off this to say that there is, oh no, I hope oh no, it's still working. Thought my computer just shut off. I was going to be so angry. So this, because of this, right? So knowing this, that dogs' brains work similar to people's and how they process emotions work the same as people's, then when you look at how we are training and interacting with our dogs, we can better understand how your dog may be processing the information. So a dog is not a wolf. Woof. Wolf. Woof. Wolf. Oh no. Dog is not a wolf. I'm sorry. I've been hanging out with my daughter way too long. She's 8.5 and she has a stuffy named Woofy, and that got totally tripped me up on my words. Okay. So they are not. So their brain processes things differently than wolves do. And so when we look at how we're interacting and training with our dogs, it is similar to, I would say, how you would want to interact with a young child. And I'm talking like toddler, 3 years old, 2 to 3 years old. How would you want to interact and teach that child how to live in the world, right? And we can use, things like positive reinforcement. You did a good job, right? The gold stars, the clapping, the celebrating when they do something correct, the encouraging them to try new things. It's okay if you get hurt. You're going to be all right. I'm here for you. You'll be fine. Or, right, there's this other very disciplinary type thing where, maybe there's a lot of yelling or a lot of I was going to say negative discipline. I don't want to get too far down like what people, because how people treat children of 2 and 3 year olds is a lot different than how they are comfortable with treating their dogs. So, for example, some people and trainers are comfortable with smacks on the dog, and some people are comfortable with smacking their children. Some people are comfortable to use things like shock tools where we're giving an electrical shock. Now, if we if we say that about somebody with their children, that's child abuse, correct? So I think that that's fewer and far between. But this parallel of why is it okay to treat our dogs who have the same emotional capabilities and processes as that 2 to 3 year old. So we're saying it's okay to use harsh, strong, stern, um, painful or uncomfortable processes with our dog during training. Maybe it's the prong collar, right? Which people will say, well, it doesn't hurt. Well, that's fine. But how, if you're saying and you believe it doesn't hurt, but what message does that send the dog's brain? It's a fear message that if I do something and they don't like it, I'm going to get hurt, or there's so much pressure on this collar that I don't want to do it again. So would you want to use a similar type of technique with a 2 to 3 year old? Oh, I don't want you to run away when we're in public, so I'm going to hold your hand. Okay. But then the more they try to run, the harder you squeeze. How hard are you going to squeeze their hand until they get the message? How comfortable are you squeezing that hand, and for how long until they get the message? And the idea there again is that because the child doesn't want to feel the pain of the squeezing of the hand, it is going to be less likely to try to get away. That's the same principle we're talking about with dogs and things like the prong collars or the choke collars. If you go out of line, you're going to get a correction, quote unquote correction, because I really dislike that word personally. And I'm going to inflict pain and discomfort so that you stay near me. Okay. I do not find that that is a healthy way of learning. And that's just my opinion. All right. There are some people who believe that that is what needs to be done, but that is not how I feel. So when you think about training and interacting with your dog, I got off on a little bit of a tangent. See, I told you I have so much to talk about. My brain just kind of like wants to fly and go wherever it wants to go. Um, so when you're working, interacting with your dogs, just think about that they are processing things very similar to how a child would. So, how do we help them learn in a good way? I want my dogs to be happy. I want to interact with them in a positive way. I want them to trust me. I want them to come to me for comfort or come to me when they're happy. When you use fear techniques in children or in dogs, you do not create trust or a bond or a safety place, an anchor for them to come to. When you have a dog, you are forever their guardian, forever. For their entire life, they are a 2 and a 3-year-old. I say that because dogs, their brains capabilities might be a little bit different, dog to dog, breed to breed. But that's why I say 2 to 3 year old. You have that for the life of that dog that you need to be their guardian for. Whereas a child, obviously, they grow up, they age, they go off on their own, they become independent. Your dog does not become independent. Your dog will always rely on you for not only its basic needs, but for everything else in its world, right? For its joys or what to do when it encounters something fearful. So, again, I got winded from all of that. And I do get passionate, I will say, about dog training. And when I see training that I find to be hurtful to the dog's emotional state. No, maybe it's not, causing any physical injury, but it's causing emotional injury. And I think that's something that people don't think about. I just saw a video online, and I understand everybody has their own theory, and there is not, it goes all over the map. So this is just mine. My assumption is if you've listened to the end of this podcast that you agree and you feel similar to I do. So, I had seen a video on the dog, a trainer in a class, and the dog has a prong collar, and the dog did not want to go with this guy. So the dog's putting on his brakes in a sense, right? Front paws are outstretched. He's pulling back. His ears are back. He's very, very tense, this dog. And the guy is saying that you needed to, not give the dog the choice, but just flood him so he accepts that this is what this is. So what he did, this dog is again on a prong collar, so it has those pins that go into the neck around there, sits like a collar, but it goes into the neck. And he basically tugged and dragged this dog closer to him. And the dog, didn't have a choice because the guy is stronger than him, and it's on this prong thing that's digging into its neck. So it gets dragged towards him. The dog has a little kind of bout of trying to flee, run away. He does kind of a spinny thing. He tries to pull backwards again, and the guy just kind of holds him tight from the leash next to him. And the dog eventually stops fighting, and he's now staring up at the guy. And he's saying, again, the dog will accept this, and then it will be okay. I that whole process to me was so traumatic for this dog. It doesn't know this person that I believe. He's the trainer. It was someone else's dog, so he doesn't know him well enough to be comfortable to approach him. This guy risked getting a bite because if that dog wanted to, it could have certainly come up and bit this guy. And this dog was super uncomfortable, and it didn't learn to just accept what's happening. It learned helplessness, that it didn't have a choice and that it was trapped in this space. So he stopped fighting for that purpose. So, all right, ended on a sad note. But anyway, so my part of my hope with this podcast, I'm going to run out of time. Part of my hope with this podcast is that I can just share good information that helps people understand their dogs better and want to live with their dogs in a more happy and harmonious way. Thank you for listening to the Dog Geek podcast. Please remember to do no harm, keep it fun, and love the dog.